Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Plone Podcast. This time, my guest is Mike McFadden from Radio Free Asia, who's been doing Plone for quite a number of years. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But Flip, thanks for joining me, and thanks for your interest in being on the podcast.
Yeah. We're just talking beforehand. The first thing that pops in my mind is like when I listen to your podcast, and yes, I did do my homework and listen to the podcast. I really enjoy them. My wife, who doesn't do Plone, enjoys listening to the podcast because there's just so much like the personal stuff going on. You have so much Plone royalty that ends up coming into your podcast, and now it's like I'm not Plone royalty at all. I am a developer. I keep a website running, and I'd like to contribute. I'd like to be, I'd like to add great value to Plone. I love open source. But your podcast is full of people that I learn from and really appreciate. And so I love the podcast. It's fun.
Oh, thanks.
So, and it's much more entertaining than like Software Engineering Daily,
Well, today we're going to cover unit tests. That's your homework. I hope you caught up on your assignment and your homework. We're going to form study groups.
Well, yeah, I use PyUnit. I use doc tests, robot tests. Every single line of code that I have ever written in my entire life is 100% covered.
My gosh.
That's a total lie.
Oh,
that's a complete total lie.
No, but there are people in Plone and Zope and other frameworks who do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it is Chris McDonough, Tres Seaver.
Those are the folks that pulled me in. Those are exactly the people that pulled me in the Plone. So
okay. Well, all right. So I'm trying to think where to start. By the way, these are not Plone royalty. These are just fun people that I got to know in Plone, and you're one. And this is a kind of a dream job for me to just talk to people that I've met and known for a long time and get to know them a little bit better, find out what makes them tick, find out the things that don't make them tick. So there really is. I just want to make sure that anybody who's listening to this or watching this, there is no homework. It's just be yourself and bring yourself to this, right?
Oh, I was like, let me share my screen, show some code. No.
That's right. We're going to do a code review.
Totally unprepared for that kind of stuff right now. So we were talking before, and you were going to allow me to tease you, and I want to tease you. I work for Radio Free Asia, as you said, and I was at one podcast I was listening to, I think it was Paul Rowland, and you're like, hey, welcome to Radio Free Plone. Wait, we don't want to be propaganda. And I'm like, what? I'm going to assume that you thought of Radio Free Plone, not because you heard the phrase Radio Free Europe.
Oh yes, I did actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you were making fun of Radio Free Europe instead, which is totally fine.
No, I wasn't actually. Well, it's kind of it was kind of a loving poke at the concept, because one person's propaganda is another person's marketing. It's brand awareness. It could be your version of the truth. It is your version of the truth. Hopefully, it's not cynically done, and it's meant to tell a story. And
yeah, and that's gonna like the segue me into like what is Radio Free Asia, because even during the last Plone conference, the questions are like coming out now. It's like I guess I'm well known enough in the Plone community now that people are okay asking these questions. Hey, you have a government funded radio what's up with that? And the answer is that the mission specifically for Radio Free Asia was free press into closed societies. So I think the propaganda is like one of the nicest things we were called, but from other, propaganda is like not the worst. Because I talked to some of the communications people at RFA, and the mission is really free press to closed societies. So I actually love the mission. The mission is basically like press. There's not really any editorial content on RFA. It's all like news, to the point of like almost boring news. Like, this is what's happening, like BBC News. I'm just going to tell you this is what's going on in this part of the world. It's just all focused on that part of the country. So it's news in Chinese for Chinese. It's news in Vietnamese for the Vietnamese. It's news in Uyghur for Uyghurs in China, Tibetan, Lao. You can just go to the webpage and see all the languages we do.
Yeah, I was looking at them. Yeah.
So it's just, I had the same thought when I was going in, is like, what is this government thing doing? But then the first thing I learned about 10 years ago coming into RFA was the plight of the Uyghurs. It was like 100% like on everybody's radar, and nobody else was talking about it. And now it's like, of course it's big news now. So, and that's what we did. Like, RFA just broke the story. So that's, just basically what is RFA. It's the mission is free press. We're humans. Maybe things go wrong every once in a while and somebody shares an opinion across, that's a journalist. We're all humans. But it's definitely not pushed by the government. I can pretty much guarantee that. So these are like real reporters and doing real things. So I'm really proud to be part of RFA.
It is a cool mission. Something I did want to point out though is that even if you feel like the stories are just the news and just the facts, just looking at the website, I was looking at some of the stories that have been selected. I think the selection of stories is another way of telling a story. Even if you stick to the facts, the choice of things that you're going to put on the front page it's very interesting. And by the way, that's a really nice new theme.
Yes, that theme is by one of my coworkers, actually. She came on young. I'm just going to call her out. She came on as an intern, who wanted to learn, who was really good at, HTML and CSS, and came on as an unpaid intern and said, I want to kind of do more back-end stuff. So she's like on the path to becoming that unicorn of like knowing how to do back-end and front end.
Uh-huh.
And she was
want a job. Does she want a paid job? Does she want a paid job?
Sorry,
because I was going to say
it was about 3 months into her paid internship. I ran up to senior management.
6 feet up is looking for
this person.
6 feet up is looking for unicorns.
No, hire this person. So I'm sure you can offer her more money than we do. So have at it. It would be horrible for RFA to lose Young. It would be, it would bring tears to my eyes to see Young working at 6 feet up and getting a really good, paycheck. I would love it. I would feel great for her. But RFA would suffer. So don't poach our employees, please.
I'll wait till after the podcast. All right. I'll give you some leeway there.
But yes, that new theme, that was tough. And the way we've set up our Plone site too is that we have like a shared code base, which is like the Radio Free Asia base. If object oriented is like the base class for Radio Free Asia. And then we have all our language services, which kind of theme it. I use the term theming loosely because everybody in Plone has a different idea of how to theme, whether it's Diazo or templates or Mosaic, there's all different ways, but we basically just say like every language service has its own theme and then go from there. Mostly what we use is browser layers. We're just keeping it simple and just like throw some templates and browser layers at it. We are using Mosaic, like this layout that you're seeing is a Mosaic layout, but when we got deep and wanted to like, let's go to editorial, The journalists, the people who actually like want to make the website look this way, let's give them Mosaic. And it turned out that Mosaic had a pretty steep learning curve for, your just average everyday, person who doesn't know HTML. And then maybe we had like 4 or 5 people who like have WordPress experience, and we threw Mosaic at them, and it still was like, okay, this is a little bit more than
Really?
what WordPress gives us. So we took it upon ourselves to create our own layouts. And then there's some parts of this that are frozen. We really use that part of Mosaic to create layouts, and then put those guardrails on the page, so you can move stuff around. And we have trained our users, but it's a little bit harder to throw everything away and create a whole page. We'd love to be there. I think we're going to be there with Volto, where we're going to be able to give people the ability to come from a blank homepage and curate the front page almost as if you're curating a newspaper. That's where I kind of come from. It's like, I want to lay this out like you're a newspaper. Here's your front story. Here's, I want a big banner for the moon landing, or little tiny banners if lots of little things are going on in the world.
So Flip, I mean, you can do those things with Mosaic too. Not that I'm saying, I mean, I'm interested to hear what
yes, you
can
can
do with Volto, right?
Yes, you can. But we also have a team of about 50 web editorial. So when I have those big visions, and that's what I saw when I saw Mosaic. I'm like, I'm just going to throw, but what happens in software deployment, forget about the whole, like, let's start for our software engineers, but the actual, the management of software and deployment of new software in an organization. If you don't think about it, it can get tricky. I want software deployments to always succeed in an organization. So when I say, hey, here's Plone 5 and Mosaic, typically most organizations, us included, commit the sin of saying, here's a new piece of software. Hello, employees, use it. And then we just walk away.
Geez, I hope
without,
you don't do that.
Well, we are more towards that side of the spectrum than we are towards the let's really formally introduce it. Let's really formally sell it. I would like to get more people in a conference room with laptops actually playing on our test servers and doing that kind of stuff, and get a little bit more of the formal training going on. We don't throw software at the wall and see if it sticks. We do have some kind of management around it, but it's very easy to get into that kind of philosophy.
So
like,
tell me how many people, including you, are working on the software for the website?
So working on Plone, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The occasional contractors. So we have a team of 5 that work in Plone that actually have the people who are doing pull requests into RFA, the master branch.
Pretty good.
Is we have 3 frequent contributors, 2 others that are contributors, but not as much. One takes care of most of the system administration and deployment. Other side is mostly like training and taking care of all the, making sure certificates are signed and making sure Akamai is doing the right thing and covering the security, and Smith takes care of like everything that that the developers don't have time to do. I need a new certificate. It's like, I'm on it. Thanks.
So you've got 10 sites, and
15 actually.
15. How come I see 10 languages?
Because there's another little thing that popped up called Benar News, BENARNEWS, which is 5 more languages. And it was, the history of that, I believe, was that the Pentagon was trying to do something, and it was for extremism in Southeast Asia, and it was terrorism and extremism, and it was like kind of like 2015, 2012-ish, and the Pentagon was running it, and every person knew exactly that this smelled like American Department of Defense, and nobody really listened to it or did anything with it. And they threw their hands up and they just gave it to us and said, like, you have the trust. So can you run Benar News and kind of just target extremists, you know, and talk about extreme, you know, these extreme terrorism things going on. And so that one popped up on our radar too, and we just threw a Plone instance at it. That was funny because the system and the person, the guru for our site, the system administrator, left for a 3-week vacation. And this was being talked about like all the way up the chain. And it was pretty much like, Flip, you know, you can do things, you can do deployments, you know, you can get everything done. And I'm sitting in a room and they're telling, you know, basically, hey, we want 5 more websites that look exactly like Radio Free Asia, work exactly like Radio Free Asia. And it has to be done in 1 month. And here's the team that's going to be using it. And they're all staring at me like, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I get this text on my phone while I'm in that meeting, and it's my wife saying, I'm pregnant. And and I'm like, okay. And did I mention that I'm on the ADHD spectrum and, like, you know, pretty pegged on the ADHD spectrum. So that was kind of now Jonathan is 6 years old. Benar News is still running, and it's up and running. And there's a few skeletons in the closet of like, ooh, we really cut corners when we deployed that one, you know. I was like, there was like certain little things, like you go to Benar News and the RFA, you know, favorite icon will show up.
Sure.
You know,
That always trips people up.
Things like that. It doesn't happen now, but little things like that would happen when you try to clone a website, you know, make it work exactly like the other one.
Been there, done that.
And we all laugh about it now. But in me, you know, I leave work that day and think I'm a total horrible failure because something like that happened. You know, I take those things really, really, really seriously. When everybody around me is just like laughing and saying, hey, that's how sausage is made, you know, don't worry about it. You know, we come in tomorrow and fix it.
You know,
that's it.
When I worked at the university here, when we launched the main campus site for using Plone, it was a high profile thing, right? Because you're changing the front page of the university of an institution. And I remember we had, I don't know, something glitched and the site went down for a few minutes. We got it back up pretty quickly, figured out what the problem was and got it back up. And then I went to my director, who's the CIO, and I said, I'm really sorry, like the site went down for a few minutes. And he said, Kim, it's okay. Nobody died. So it's like, you know, in the end, it's a detail, right?
We're not saving lives here. You know, I don't maybe.
Well, maybe in, you know, in your case, maybe you are.
Maybe we are saving a life, but, you know, but yeah, the website being down for 5 minutes is not gonna, you know, in a previous life, no, a past job. I did the front page website for Capital One.
Wow.
And that went down on my watch for, I think it was down somewhere around 8 to 12 hours. The front page of Capital One. You could still log in and pay your card because that's like a different part. But the whole like revenue making, like, hey, we're going to sell you stuff part, you know, you go to capitalone.com and it goes, the site can't be reached. You know, that's it wasn't my fault. I'm glad I have other stories that were my fault, but that one wasn't my fault. But I was part of digging in and finding out what was going on and bringing that back up. So I get a much more love. I have a better warm fuzzy in my my heart working for RFA rather than Capital One. So Capital One paid pretty well though. So
that's interesting.
It was the first time I actually got a real software engineering paycheck, and a real one, and it shocked me how much software engineers make.
Really?
Yeah. Before then, I
So
was an
okay, wait,
astronomer.
let's go back. So you talked about your previous job at Capital One, and you told me that your background is not at all computers, not at all software. So tell me, what did you grow up wanting to be, and then what was your journey to Plone?
Oh, everything. Oh my God. I wanted to like be an actor. I wanted to sing and dance and be on stage.
Can you sing?
Yeah. Um, not. I haven't been practicing.
It's kind of a shame.
Last time I
You
was
should
singing, I
have
was doing
been.
open mics. I'll go upstairs, get the guitar. No, it's that's being on stage was fun, and I really liked that when I was growing up. But I was also the kid who was always in the back of the class fooling with the Apple IIe.
Hmm.
And always, I told my mom, drop me at the library so I can play on the computers. So I was doing both. I loved my computers. I would tear stuff apart and see how they worked. So if I tore a clock apart, or or any other piece of equipment, I could kind of like look at it and say, oh, that's how it works. But if I took a radio apart, or a computer or something like that, there was nothing but this electronic board underneath, this green board with a bunch of stuff on it. And I couldn't like look at that and tell you how it worked. And that's kind of what spawned me into like, well, I need to know this now.
Hmm.
So I had this kind of fascination with technology and electronics. Um, but also I love being in plays and being in drama and just having fun on stage. So when I went to college, I immediately signed up to be a theater major at my university. Um,
Which university was that?
that would be Appalachian State University. Loved it, in Boone, North Carolina. And so it's a state university. It's North Carolina State University. If you're in North Carolina, you know about App State. But outside, unless you are a fan of the Michigan football team, App State crushed them one year in the pre-games. And we'll talk about that for the next 30 years,
Yeah, I'm
about
sure.
how Michigan fell to App State. Um, I love App State. It was a great place to be. And I took a computer against all recommendations in my freshman year on a summer. I joined college like the summer semester. So I'd like the 5-week semesters instead of the whole 12 weeks. And I said, oh, there's a programming class for C, and I want to take that, because I like computers. And I'm being advised by like 3 or 4 like student advisors, like for incoming freshmen. It's like, you don't want to take that class. That's tough stuff. And I'm like, it's like I've been programming in BASIC, and I went in high school. I did Pascal. So I was like, I can do this. And no, 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 no. And I enjoyed the hell out of that class and came out with like an A, and just I loved it. And then I took the next programming class that my freshman year, and I came out with an A again, like proving everybody wrong. And by the way, I am a horrible student, by the way. I just loved the topic, and that's why I was able to do it well, because I loved the topic. And then the chair of the computer science department came and did the whole spiel of like, why don't you be a computer science major?
Hmm.
And I told him, I'm a theater major. No, thank you. And he said, don't you want to make money? And I said, okay, fine. You're right. And the next 4 years, I suffered through relational algebra, for relational databases, and took me like 3 times to pass Calc 2. And, I did it. I got through it. But looking back, I'm not sure how I got. I love the idea of being an academic. I love the idea of studying and getting A's and earning lots and lots of degrees. I love the idea, but when you put me in that culture and that group, I don't perform as well as real academics. So I'm always like I'm coming out with C's and everybody else is coming out with A's. So, and I applied to grad school and they're like, you know what, no. So I went out and got jobs.
I'm thinking about that chair's remark about, do you want to make money? And this past weekend, I watched the Shang-Chi movie, and have you seen it?
No.
Oh, it's well, actually, I guess of the Marvel Universe movies, I really like it. I mean, that's a good one.
I love Marvel. No, I haven't done it. My movie selection is a little bit smaller with a 6-year-old now. So we watched Cruella, which I thought was amazing.
I don't know. I think that's probably more traumatizing than anything that's in Shang-Chi.
You know what? You do make a point.
I mean, just the title of the movie, cruel. I mean, you're like, okay. So, and the reason why I'm bringing up Shang-Chi,
good and evil, there's like, it's not just like 0 and 1, good and evil. There's a whole spectrum.
There should be like
there is that of God in everyone.
There should be like a radio-free Cruella.
Radio-free Cruella. There you go.
From her perspective,
just tell the story as it is.
So I want to just say that the guy who played the main character in the Shang-Chi movie is a guy he's on a Canadian sitcom series that's on Netflix. And that guy went from, I'm not sure how much he was paid for that series. I'm assuming not that much, to making big time money for doing Shang-Chi. And now the guy's set for life. So honestly, I think he's probably earning more than a software engineer.
Many of the actors that you know of are earning more than software engineers. But on the average, so people in acting are typically doing jobs being waiters, or, I don't know, have to enter the field going to porn or something like that. I don't, that's not, that's now, yeah. I mean, we all look at the stars. Yeah. Oh, look at George Clooney. I want to be just like him. Yeah. I want to be like Michael Jordan. You
want to be like Linus Torvalds? I mean, don't say Richard Stallman.
No, I don't want to be like Linus. I want to be, and I can't remember his name, but I got to sit next to him and talk to him, and I can't remember his name, but he's the creator of MySQL and MariaDB. I can't remember his name. I should look it up because I had a week to remember it. Michael Windia. The name doesn't remind me, but yes. And he named Mari after his. Yeah, I got to David Axmark. There it is. That's who I got and Alan Larson. Yeah, David Axmark I got to hang out with, and a few people like that. They're cool people.
So you're talking about stars? Is it because of their earning power?
No, it's their fame within the open source community. It's the fact that they get, I don't want the money as much as I want the worship. I want to walk down a conference hall, and people are like, oh, there goes Flip. He's the one who wrote that. That's the what's inside me that, I probably shouldn't attain because I'd use it for evil instead of good. So, but that was always, that's what I always found, I'll talk about that. Those are the evil motivations. I just want to, I want to do best for my family, and I want to make sure my son is raised well. And, I just want to be happy. No, I wanted that. It's the theater major inside me. I wanted to be the guy on stage, and everybody was looking at him and giving him the love and praise and attention that he needs to survive. That's that's ultimately underneath me, and I've worked on that for a good 40 years to make sure I'm, it doesn't drive my personality, and sometimes it does. I'm not the center of attention. I got to remember that.
I think it's a worthy motivation to want to do interesting or good things, and have produced things or done something, to help a project or piece of software community, and then have people acknowledge that you did those things. I mean, I don't think there's anything bad about it.
I feel there's a high moral value when you do something great and wonderful and then kind of step into the shadows, People say, oh yes, Jens built that, but do you see Jens like walking around like, yes, I'm no, he's just, he quietly delivers like most of, right now is quietly delivering like most of the foundation and making sure that things are working kind of behind the scenes. And I think there's kind of a more, there's a lot to say about that. I think it's called humility. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Something that
I was just reading an article about some of the reactions that people can get when someone does something that's charitable. The reaction can swing both ways. It can be like, oh, there's that person who did this great thing, or I really don't like that person because they're showing off, or they're doing something because their motivation isn't good. It's impure motivation. There's something fishy about what they're doing. And that's one of the things I love about the Plone community, which is that the people who are in it are people who don't seek glory. I think they're driven by wanting to produce something good, high quality, or help people organize things, take charge of things, and they're not motivated by I want to show off by doing this stuff. I think intrinsically they have the motivation to do the thing well.
And that is a good community for me to be a part of. Like when I met Philip Bauer for the first time, and I really thought like
that guy's a prima donna. He's a prima donna. He was angling. Oh, this is totally false. He was angling for the first interview on this podcast.
No, he wasn't.
And then apparently this podcast wasn't good enough. He had to go start his own.
He had to start his own.
Now there's a prima donna for you right there. What has he done for Plone?
His body of work in Plone, his body of work speaks for itself, though.
It says, "Look at me! Look at me!
Look at me! I'm awesome!" I can turn all of Plone to Python 3 with one command.
Yeah, and you know what? With that power, he could also turn it to PHP. That would be funny. The thing about Philip is he's probably listening or watching this podcast, and he's going to go, I'm going to have a podcast episode of my own in which I attack.
Talk about the look at me, look at me, look at me. The way I met Philip Bauer was in Boston conference, and I wanted to take the Mastering Plone because I have the insecurity complex that even though I've been working in Plone for like 6 years at that point, or 7 years, I still felt like there's gaps in my knowledge. So let me go ahead and take the Mastering Plone course by Philip. And I didn't know who Philip was. I just know I wanted to take this course. And they're covering a lot of stuff that I'd already touched because I've been working in it for 6 years. Duh. But I can't keep my mouth shut because I'm just like bad like that. So there's a lot of good students in there doing their good work, and I have to like raise my hand every once in a while and go like, so is that like a multi-adapter? It's like, and Phil's like, yes, it is we're not talking about multi-adapters. We're just talking about browser views. Okay. And I have to be that kind of jerk. And I felt like I really was like, I got on a wrong foot. This is Philip's class. He's teaching it. And I have to be like the heckler or something like that. I don't know. And I told it to Philip and he's like, that was you. Cause he does remember. And he's like, that was you. Now it's all coming together. And then I felt bad afterward. We went out to lunch. I tried to buy him lunch, but he didn't take it. And from then on, I'm like, oh man, I had this like one opportunity to make some good friends in the Plone royalty, clique that I see in my head. And there I was, I just heckled him during his training class. But since then, Philip and I have had more conversations, and I think we're starting to get to know each other's personality a little bit better. But I've never had the best social skills. So, drama's good because there's a script you can read from and you can pretend to be somebody. But when you're yourself, then very, So and it just, that's how I met Philip.
That's actually how I met you.
By telling him he was doing his software wrong, looking over his shoulder.
Oh,
and basically, you're doing that wrong. It's like what is wrong with me at some points? And but eventually, Trace and I got, it's okay. He tolerates me. he's called me out saying I've fixed some good bugs. So like, it's okay. But those first impressions, you, for example, I thought I completely blew my first impression with you at in Boston.
Yeah, because I remember meeting you in those offices. That was the Zipcar office, and I was
Yep.
taking the JavaScript class, and you were in an adjacent room, or maybe down the
I
hall.
was taking the mastering Plone.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
after that, there was the talk about Plone security. And I can't remember who gave it, but it was a really good talk about like how Plone is really good at security. And here's your best practices to keep it good at security. So here's the ways you can open it up if you're not too, and at the end of that, I mentioned something about RFA has been running Plone for, it's now like 15, maybe 20 years. And state sponsored hacking is after us. Like China wants to take the site down. And I said, and it's stood up since then. It's like we have like pretty much fended off most things. It doesn't even reach our desks.
wow.
And then there was applause and like, oh, yay, Plone security, great, wonderful. And somebody asked me about it outside in the hallway, and you were walking by, and I said something about like, yeah, the FBI thinks they're great running Plone and they get attacked all the time, but what about RFA? We got state sponsored. And at that point, I had thought that you were working at some contracting or had worked at some contracting with that website, with the FBI's website. The American Federal Bureau of Investigation, and how they weren't getting hacked. And right behind, I turned around and there you were with this, I don't know what had come across your phone, or maybe you did hear me and got really just angered and triggered, but you were like, whatever, I don't know what was going on, but you were really mad at that point. And I was like, oh my God, I just said that like RFA is better than FBI in front of Kim.
Oh, come on. I'm pretty sure that I don't remember being upset at you, but I don't remember being upset that day or that during the training period of the conference.
It wasn't the training. It was during the actual talks. It was like 2 days or 3 days in. So, and
there was a lot
me.
going on. Let's see. So that was 2016. That was Boston. So I was working at Wildcard. I mean, I can't think of anything in particular that would have upset me. I was trying to think if I'd been working, previously to Wildcard, I was working at the university, and there might have been something going on at the university that would have really ticked me off because of the whole Plone CMS battles I had.
And in my mind, if anybody's ticked off, it's something I did. That's just my brain. It's like,
No, but I do remember meeting you there. I remember because during the breaks, you guys would come to the back of our room, which was actually the lunch room for the entire Zipcar office. So they were kind enough, they kicked everybody out of that room, and we had the whole place to ourselves. So
yeah, and I met you like filling up coffee or something like that, and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, that's the whole point of those conferences, to get people, to draw people out, get them to meet others and hopefully participate in the training or the sprints. That's really how you get to know people. It's kind of sad that, because of all the online stuff, we don't get to meet people as easily. Even during the conference, I mean, you meet people through Zoom and maybe gather a town, but really you don't get to work together as much.
No, and I've always wanted to participate more in sprints and stuff. And Boston was where I was going to break out, and I was going to be like, I'm going to really join this community and see what I can do. Where find a need and fill it. And I ended up getting like neurovirus or some kind of horrible food poisoning at Boston, and had the ditch right in the middle of the lightning talks. I had a lightning talk lined up, and I went to Chris Ehrwig. How do I say his last name?
Ewing. Yeah.
Chris Ewing. And I just said, I gotta go. And I was like pale, sweating, I was like, I just gotta leave. And he was like, oh, go. And I completely went down for about 48 hours with food poisoning or something. Yeah, we blame it on Jonathan had come with me. Betsy, my wife, and Jonathan, my son, had come with me, and they went to the Children's Museum in Boston while I was going to the conference. And she says that he was playing in the water stuff
Sure.
at the Children's Museum and probably drinking the water at the Children's Museum, and that's how we ended up.
There should be biohazard suits for people
God,
who go to
I
this.
didn't realize how like I didn't understand children and biohazards at that point.
Oh man. Oh yeah. The vats. They're seething vats. One of the things that you had mentioned was that you wanted to get more involved in the Plone community. And I remember poking you and asking you if you'd be interested in hosting a sprint in DC. And you were very kind to say, yes, you could arrange it. And, how can we, when are we going to organize a sprint? And I remember
That was React sprint, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was React or something.
yeah. And I think that's great. And we need more people who are willing to step up and help organize something like that.
And I went to the RFA offices and said, is this possible? Like, and I sold it as like, look, Plone does so much for us. We need to do something for them. And my mind was like, we've got these big conference rooms and stuff like that. It's like, can we, just give coffee and what was it? Coffee, internet, power.
Yeah. Coffee, Wi-Fi, and power. Yes.
Coffee, Wi-Fi, and power, and everything was good. And the CTO and the COO were both like, yeah, we see no problems with this. And so we were ready to go. And then I think and then coronavirus came and ruined everything. I was also voluntold by Chrissy that we need another conference in DC.
Yeah.
So
it's been a while. Been good Lord, 13 years. Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't working in Plone when that was going on. So
Oh yeah. So tell me, like what ended up having you be doing Plone? Is it you met Tres Seaver, Chris McDonough? How did you?
I was actually after Capital One, I joined a company, a great company that was doing software for network monitoring. Basically the same thing as what SolarWinds was doing. And SolarWinds now we don't talk about, don't talk about them. But back then that's what, they were network monitoring software. And this was EM7. And it was fascinating. I loved it. And they hired me because I was good at my PHP. And the lead engineer said, well, do you want to learn Python? And I said, yeah, I really do. And that's how I got into Python. And then I pissed everybody off at that company because I've got a, big mouth and stuff. And I had to, just reevaluate my life. And there was a big change in my life. There was lots going on. And I was living with somebody who worked for Radio Free Asia. And they just, while I was looking for jobs, trying to get back into the workforce, and he sends me a link saying, hey, Radio Free Asia is looking for this person to work on their website. And in my mind, it's like, I'm not going to work on websites. I'm better than that. I'm going to work on microcontrollers, this is my brain. And I said, okay, well, this is how I'm going to kind of restart my career. I'm going to go in, I'll see what happens. I'll work for them for maybe a year, maybe two, and then find something that really interests me, and then I came in and they said, well, do you know Python? I'm like, yeah, I've got, this 5 years of Python experience, no problem. Do you know Plone? No idea. Do you know Zope? No idea. Okay, you're hired. So yeah, and so I came in and had to learn it from the ground up, and they were in the middle of migrating from Plone 2 to Plone 4, just skipping over Plone 3 completely because it was they were struggling a little, with Plone, and they were using agendaless consulting.
Oh yeah, sure.
Which is Trace and Chris McDonough and all those. So I got to go in, and Trace would show up once a week because that's all they could really afford. And Trace would come in and pound out some stuff and really drive the architecture is really what he was doing, mostly driving the architecture and saying, implement this. And they were having trouble implementing because they didn't have any like software developers on the team. And that's where I came in, and Trace, I just basically ghosted, shadowed Trace through what was going on. And then slowly got my feet underneath me and started developing in Zope and Plone. And eventually it got to the point where Trace stopped showing up. And he went on to great things after that. I think he went off to Google, writing APIs for Google and stuff. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. And I kind of just took over from there. And yeah, so there it was. And it was very kind of anti-Plone. It was like Zope was really where the technology was.
Yeah, I wonder where they got that idea from, huh?
Like Zope was really the way it should be done, and Plone was this like bastardization of Zope. And that was like the first philosophy that I came, across, is like, just focus on the Zope stuff, and then the Plone stuff will come, later. And that was not the right way to approach it.
Did you hear the little bit? Well, when I interviewed Alan Runyon, he said that one of the things that he and Alex Leamy had done was to simplify the choices that were available to someone who would otherwise be using Zope. And there's so many ways you could do a thing with Zope. They just made it easier for people to just choose the one way that you can do a thing.
They made a lot of decisions. Yeah, I love that. It was like, I love when you kind of cornered them, like iterated decisions you don't like, and you could see it was like, yeah, tons, but yeah, you have to make decisions because Zope is so open. It's an open world.
Canvas almost.
It is. And I think you can make as many bad decisions with Zope as you can good decisions. So Zope did need something like Plone on top to kind of like give it a focus. Maybe there's somebody out there who's going to build a new CMS on top of Zope. Hey, that's called Pyramid, isn't it?
Pyramid's a rebuilding, really, of Zope, right? A slimmed down version.
I was invited to a Pyramid sprint in New Orleans, and I was thinking that I was trying to build the Radio Free Asia site back on top of Pyramid with Trace help. And that's when I realized that sprints were not the same thing as what I thought a sprint was from what Capital One taught me. Where a sprint is you sit in a room for 40 hours a week working on nothing but software. No, sprints are everybody getting together and drinking and laughing and talking and staying up late. And then near the end of it, like there's like 2 or 3 people banging out some code. And that's what ends up in the release. In the last like 3 hours. And I'm like, wow.
First 3 hours, and then things devolve into just a talk fest.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And that's also when I pissed off Paul Everett, because he was there.
Is there a theme here? I think this is in your head, Flip. This is all in your head. You're not really pissed off.
I wanted to be more of a part of the Pyramid gurus. And I had really not contributed much because really nobody was like really writing tons of code. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to buy pizza for everybody. So I ended up like buying like 4 boxes of pizza and coming in. And well, I was a hit. Like everybody just swarmed it. Pizza was gone in like, 30 seconds. Like everybody's like holding 2 pieces, like, and then Paul Everett like walks in near the end and he's like, what happened? Can I have a piece? And in my mind, I was like, I didn't buy enough. And here's Paul Everett. He's like, just like, you didn't include me.
Uh-oh.
And it's all in my head. You're absolutely right. But I'm like, that's how I pissed off Paul Everett, And this is my continuing story of like how I go into the Plone community. I meet somebody and piss them off.
Good thing we don't have JetBrains sponsorship for this podcast.
I'm using PyCharm now too, and I love it.
Is this where I jump in and I say I've been using PyCharm since the Barcelona Plone conference when they were handing out, as part of their sponsorship, they were handing out free licenses, and I won one. And I thought, I'll try it. Because before I tried Wing IDE, back when when Joel Burton came to visit us at the university here to give us a training, this like 2007, and he talked up Wing IDE, and I thought, okay, I'll try it. But so I tried PyCharm and I go, what's going to get me off Emacs? I've been using Emacs for like, I don't know, 40 years, not quite 40.
And 30. I give you mad props for that.
But so I stopped using
even
Emacs.
Better than,
I'm using PyCharm now.
Emacs is better than Vim. Let's just go ahead and say it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, duh. Vim is just like a wannabe of Emacs, except
of Emacs.
like, obviously. But now all the kids are using VS Code. Everybody's using VS Code.
What is this coding in a browser? I've never heard of it before. I'm behind the times.
No, PyCharm is nice. It's got a lot of tooling. I like the code, the way you can jump through all the code, and yeah, it's nice.
I had my Wing IDE set up really nice, so it was just this year that I went to PyCharm.
Did you ever get debugging of Plone to work in Wing IDE? Because I did once, and it never worked again.
I think my story is very similar. But I haven't gotten debugging working in PyCharm. I don't run Zope. I don't run a Plone instance in my IDE. Let's just make that rule. It's like IDEs are not meant to run Plone instances. So I just don't. I have a separate instance I run. I do bin instance foreground and throw debug lines in there, and I just act like I'm, old school. I don't want to spend 3 days learning a whole new way to debug something. I just want to, do what works for me.
Just put print statements. Just put print statements in. Just put print statements
in there. 6 Feet Up taught me how I can launch a debug instance on a production site. Thank you, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's not dangerous at all.
Not at all.
But I have untangled some pause key errors that way in production.
Oh lordy.
Those, bin debug. And
the scars of pause keys.
Yeah.
So many scars, emotional scars.
I'm still dealing with them now. We had the current project I'm working on. I'm going to plug it because I'm getting a lot of love. It's like, this is great. It's great for my ego. I'm working on the keyword manager that hasn't been touched for like 10 years, it seems. We have been running Plone at RFA for I think 15 to 20 years. I don't know exact. I think it's around 15 years. And as I said, we just throw software at the wall and see if it sticks. So the web editorial team that actually like types in all the data and makes the stories have been using the subject field, the keywords field, and just been throwing stuff at it. Our analysis today, we had one of our services has 40,000 keywords. And a lot of them are just like one-time use. There's like mixes of capitals and lower cases. They've managed to put spaces in front of keywords and spaces in the back of keywords so they don't match. They're different keywords. So we were like, we need to clean this up. And I found the Plone Keyword Manager as a plugin, installed it, and was instantly not happy enough to, it was enough there. Like it was a great start. So I knew I had something that was working, but it wasn't going to be presentable to web editorial. And so I got in there and started working on it. And within days to weeks, there's these people just popping up on GitHub and on the community. They're saying, I use this too. Thanks for working on it. I use this too, and I hate it. Thanks for working on it. I like me. And then Jens jumps in and says like, my client, I'm going to use this. I'm going to take your branch and install it on one of my clients. Wow. And like when Jens says something, I was like, whoa, and then he just recently came back and says like, great job. I love it. And like, it's like the warm fuzzy. I mean, I almost got tears from my eyes that I'm actually like, helping other people, and I'm contributing, rather than finding like obscure bugs that nobody knows about. I'm actually doing something that's in the user's faces.
So is your code now merged into the main branch?
No, not yet. And I changed it back to draft because there was so much demand for what I was doing that that we intentionally scope crept the pull request. So we're adding a few more things to it. Including like it needs CI integration, for example, like the modern day GitHub CI needs to move because it's still doing Travis and that's totally broken. And there was a few other things that I threw on there. It's like I want to add this to it and this to it. So we kind of scope creeped a little bit. I understand it's a sin, but it's a really big refresh of the keyword manager.
Okay.
So it's a draft pull request right now. But it's easy to find.
What's your ETA?
So, don't ask somebody with ADHD how long it's going to take.
All right. So I'm going to have to come back.
I'm thinking it's going to be about 2 weeks.
Oh, all right. That's acceptable. So it'll be in time for Christmas.
Next Christmas. Yeah. This reminds me of like one of the projects I did for RFA, and I told him, I was like, will you have this out by Thanksgiving? And I said, yeah, I should be able to, but the creep just hit it badly. And it turned out that I delivered by next Thanksgiving, and I still talk to that manager about it, and they say like, yeah, you didn't say which year. And I did. It was like it took another year to get it, and that was Kaltura integration.
Sure.
Yeah, Plone doesn't have a native video type, and maybe that's going to be the next thing I'm going to work on, and we can, do something. But it doesn't have a native dexterity type for a video. Add new video. And I think it should have a native type for videos. But what I did is I integrated Kaltura video system into it.
Oh, well, you've done that Kaltura work. So otherwise I was going to suggest you go take a look at what Plumi used to do for videos.
Okay. I will. I probably have stumbled across it already and I don't remember it. But holding videos inside the ZODB is also kind of touchy. Video blobs. Video blobs are big.
Yeah.
And that's, I was told that was one of the requirements of why Kaltura took so long, because the system administrator said, no, you're not allowed to have our 50 web editorial people allowed to just upload any video they want into Plone whenever they want. And, he went to the whiteboard and just basically said, this is the growth pattern of our blobs. This is the growth pattern after you add video. You can't do this. And so I had to go in, and this was in Archetypes, and I had to completely override the storage method on the field. So once the file got stored in blobs, it got deleted and replaced with a text file that says, this is not the video you're looking for, or something like really, this is not the video you're looking for. And it said like, basically go over to Kaltura because it's stored over here. And I think that's still in the code. That's still in the code where there's a text file where the blob should be. And if you open it up, it says something like, this is not the video you're looking for.
Great. All right, Flip. Well, thanks very much I'm looking forward to seeing that merge of your code for the keyword manager. So I'm going to poke at you at this Christmas, and ask you how it's going. But thank you very much, Flip. And it's been a joy talking to you and getting to learn a little bit more about your background, your story, how you came to Plone, and all the great things you're going to keep doing for Plone, including organizing a sprint or a conference, right?
I've heard that you kind of have to do that at some point.
Yeah, that's the sound of a rubber arm being twisted.
Yeah, and I hear it's like a really easy thing to do too. I hear it's
so easy. No-brainer. I mean, we know exactly. I mean, we could do it in our sleep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not Plone royalty until I do it. So.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kim. It was a fun talking to you.
It was a blast. Thanks.